Hello and welcome to another Lemonade series. I am Jaquetta and I'm here with Lynne Forrest, the creator of the reality formula. And today, because of the holidays approaching very quickly, I'd like to talk about how to effectively deal with those family members that may be more difficult. Lynne, I know you have a great story about this, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, that's a great topic, man. Of course, we're in the same family, you and me. We were just joking about me being one of those relatives that you just got to spend time with. I'm your mother. It's too bad, so sad. That's just the way that works. Um, we're family, so hey, get over it. That would be my first suggestion. Learn how to make peace with it, right?
Exactly.
But all joking aside, I've told this story and now both are deceased, so I can even tell names. It's about my mom's second husband, whose name was Harold. And they met when my mom was in her 40s. And they were together 33 years when she passed away, when she left this plane. And oh my goodness, we struggled. And not when I say we, it was not just me. It was my brother and sister, all three of us. Oh, we struggled with Harold. We just tried to like him. We we wanted to like him. I guess at least we said we did. But in our mind, he made it impossible. He was just so cranky and so intrusive. To me, my biggest complaint with him. And I'm telling you this so that I can use it as an example of how we bring the guiding principles and how the guiding principles work. So one of my projections onto Harold was that he stood between my mother and I, that whenever I would call, he would always be on the phone as well. And so there was no private conversations with her after he came on the scene, or very few anyway. It felt that way to me. I'm sure that's an exaggeration. But that was the way it felt to me, and that was my story. And my sister and brother and I would get together and we would talk in negative terms about Harold and how Harold just was the bane of our existence. And yet mom was so attached to him and so in love with him, and really, really, they got along great as far as she was concerned. We had concerns, but she was happy. So one day, one Thanksgiving, they lived up in Ohio, and we were all congregating there, and from various points on the map. I was in Tennessee, and my family members were coming from different places, and we all gathered at their house for this Thanksgiving holiday. And so driving up there, it was about an 8-9 hour drive. I began to do that thing about that dread that I would feel whenever I would think about him being there. And thinking about just how was I going to get her away for a minute. And I had so much I wanted to share with her. And she and I have had such a spiritual bond ever since childhood. I wanted to feel that again without an interference. And blah, blah, blah. I had all this story. And all of a sudden in my mind, the question popped in. So Lynne, when you're busy resisting him, how do you treat him? How do you treat him when you are not happy with him? And immediately I got this flash of what it must look like from the outside when I entered the room that he was in. I had this image of me averting my eyes, me avoiding him altogether, like trying to circumnavigate around him and get to my mother. I could see myself sort of rolling my eyes when I would speak about him or to him. I could see myself just being very, pushing him away, very, very negative in that way. And I realized that the next question was, if that's how you're treating him, then what can you expect back from him? What kind of response can you expect back from him? And I thought, you know what? I could see how that would feel threatening to him. That in fact, and I suddenly realized that actually he had alluded to his fears that we were going to take her away from him. I could see how my behavior towards him was actually feeding that fear. And then the next question came. This is all as I'm driving. I'm just having this aha moment in my mind of realizing my part in this. And the next question that came was, what would be different if you didn't have this story about him as being exclusive, as being as shutting you out? So, and I realized that we were both fearing the same thing. We both felt like the other one was threatening our togetherness with my mother and his wife. All of a sudden, I could picture how I would like it to go. I decided that I was going to walk into the space as if that were true, as if my vision of the way I wanted it to go was reality rather than the unhappy story I had about it. And I'll never forget, when I walked in the front door, family was already there. Everyone was meeting and greeting and hugging and all that. And I walked in the front door, and right across the room from me stood Harold. And my mom was somewhere else in the room, but there was Harold. And as soon as I walked in, I looked directly at him, and he looked up, and I caught his eye. And I walked right to him, making eye contact with a big smile on my face. And I walked over to him first. And I said to him these words, Harold, I just want you to know I've been thinking about you on the way up here and realizing how grateful I am that my mom has you, a man that she dearly loves, to be there by her side and to take care of her in such a beautiful way as you do. And I mean, he broke out in this beaming smile. It was like, oh my gosh, it was like he had waited his whole life to hear someone acknowledge him in that way. And at that moment, I turned, I saw my mom, and I walked to her and hugged her, and he came over with, he sort of followed me over to her. And I told Mom the same thing. I said, Mom, I was thinking about Harold on the way up here and how grateful we are to him for all he offers you and all the ways that he, all the things he is for you and to you, and just so grateful that you have each other. And she gave a big smile. And I mean, that at that moment, everything shifted. Everything shifted. Do you know, not only did he begin to respond differently to me, he began to tell others how much like my mother I was, and how close he felt to me, and all these complimentary things. And the thing about, you know, the most miraculous thing about it, the most miraculous change was in my perception of him. That is shifted completely, because once I understood that I was the one setting the tone, and it really, that I can do something about that, and that I began to see him differently. I began to truly see him as the hero for my mom, you know, as see him as someone who, she had found true love. You know, she had found a man who really treated her like royalty and wanted to be with her. And that was what she wanted. And she had in him everything she wanted. And I began to really, truly appreciate him. So that when my mom passed away, when she died, by that time, my relationship with him was so tight, so bonded, that I continued, even after she died, I continued to visit him. And he had become that important to me. And so this is an example of what the guiding principles teach us. Is that helpful? Any questions or anything that come up for you, or comments? I'd love to hear you, because I know you know about this because you were around during those days. And
I was pretty young still when your relationship shifted. And so, but I did notice that you and he got a lot closer later. So I do remember you being very close. I didn't remember the sideways glances or anything like that. I guess I was having my own experience and my own story. So, but hearing you talk about it, it makes sense, because there was a lot going on that I wasn't privy to. It seemed like I was always just guessing what might be going on, and really not that interested as a kid. I was much more interested in the scary basement and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was many years ago. You're right.
Yeah.
But it changed everything, and all that happened was something shifted in my mind. He didn't change. I changed my mind. And that's a really powerful thing. And I would say this to anyone listening, check it out. Check it out. Check out what happens when you shift your perception, when you look for how the way they are, whoever this irritating relative is, that you have such a resistance to. And check out how it is and what it is in them that they are mirroring to you. So the guiding principles are always tools for helping us reframe how we see things. And in order to really access the guiding principles, the thing that we want to ask first is, what am I telling myself about this person? And because that's a story. It's always a story. So what is my story? And do I know it's true? And when I believe it, who do I become? How do I feel? How do I act? And if it is a story that takes me into feeling alienated from them, rejected by them, then it's a story that is worth questioning, because we're not in our highest vibration. We're not seeing them clearly. We're seeing the story and not able to see them for the story. And so just to begin to get clear on, this is my story, and I don't know absolutely that it's true, but I know that when I believe it, I feel this way and I act that way, and the way I would like to see this go is. And then we actually practice seeing people the way we want to see them, and watch what happens. That would be my suggestion.
Not only just what we want to see in them, but what we do see in them that is positive
Absolutely.
already.
Look
That
for
is
that. That's
sometimes,
right.
it's even easier, because if we get into what we want to see in them, we might start focusing on how they're not that way.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just start focusing on what it is about them that we really appreciate, that can help a lot as far as feeling the openness toward them. And
I
you
like
start
that.
getting more and more evidence of all of the good things that they bring.
So true, Jaquetta.